Welcome. Thank you for attending this morning. How are you today? I hope things are great. I want to make this brief, but I do want to give you some pointers and some things to consider as you evaluate or reevaluate your existing technology plan. As you can see, my name is Ernie Delgado, co-founder and CEO of Beyond Technology Education. And we've been actually in this space working with schools, helping develop technology integration plans for over 15 years. And from the very beginning until today, our question has always been, how can we help use technology to improve teaching and learning in the classroom? That's been the question, and that's what we've been answering, for many years. And we developed a model, and I'm going to share that model with you because I want you to look at the contents of what we've learned over 15 years of experience and overlap it onto your existing technology plan and see if there's any areas that you might be overlooking or not emphasizing enough. A little background, as I mentioned, we've been doing this for 15 years. We're a group of almost 20 experts in the field, master's degree educators, professional developers, integration specialists, instructional design experts. And so we have a lot of background in the classroom, in the K-12 environment, helping teachers, helping students, and helping curriculum specialists use technology more effectively. And we kind of connect the dots, and we developed a plan to help you do that effectively. Now, we didn't just come up with these things randomly. It's based on experience, it's based on research, and it's based on trends. And there's a couple things I want to start out with to make sure that we're all on the same page. And one of the things that we've noticed very clearly is that technology and the use of technology and the access to technology is exploding in the homes of our students and in the lives of our students. Now, over the last 5-10 years, the same thing can be said about our teachers. Our teachers are now using technology in their personal lives now more than ever. Why is that? And what are they doing? Well, we're finding that the research shows the fastest growing group of users are adults ages 36 to 65. So there's data to back up this idea. And most of your teachers fit into that age range. And so what's happening is that they are using technology more for research. They are using technology more for things like purchasing items, things like booking travel, banking, communicating, socializing. However, what we have learned is most teachers have really not been shown how to take those skills and apply them to the classroom and apply them to teaching students. So some teachers obviously have figured it out, many of them have, and some of you have provided some type of training or support for them. But on the whole, we have found that most teachers really haven't gone to a really significant level of technology use because they haven't been trained. So with the lack of training, they have to fall back onto what is easier, and that's playing games, using apps, visiting websites, downloading worksheets. These are simple things to do, and this is what we find is happening at many, many schools because not enough emphasis has been placed on the professional development aspect. So be aware of that, and let me I'll share with you some ideas on how to help that area. In addition to making sure teachers are prepared and more using technology at a higher level, we also have to think about students. Now, this is the easiest part of the equation. Our students do not know a world without technology. They've been using it. They're using it all day, every day. It's in many aspects of their life. In fact, sometimes they're overusing it, and screen time is at a ridiculous level. You're not going to eliminate screen time, but if we can make it a little more applicable and relevant to the learning environment, well, that's a good thing, right? So one of the things that we do as an organization is kind of keep track on trends in business and industry. And right now, we are at the very bottom heel of this innovation just explosion. And there's some research and there's some really good books out there. Kurzweil from Google has some wonderful research on this, but innovation is changing very rapidly, exponentially, in fact. And so what's happening is that our students are at a place where what they're learning today is going to be very different to what's going to be required in the next 5 to 10 years. Things are just changing tremendously. Our world is an innovation explosion. So if you look at this trend in innovation just going up quickly, and you look at education kind of creeping along, the divide between what we're teaching students and what they're going to need in the real world for careers is getting larger and larger. How can we change that? How can we impact that? And it's going to be through the integration of technology into your schools, into the way you teach, and really kind of focusing on the concept of complex problem solving. We don't know exactly what technologies will be viable in the future. Things are changing and being introduced all the time. But if we develop a student that has the problem-solving ability to walk up to any technology environment and figure it out, well, then we've done them a good service. And in fact, there's a lot of talk in corporate America about how are we going to fill these jobs in the future? How are we going to make sure that this innovation freight train that we develop, we're the most innovative culture in society in the history of the world, how do we maintain that? It's going to require a lot of smart people. And this is where things like artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, all these concepts, plus a lot of other stuff that hasn't even been talked about yet. We need to start providing skill sets where students can thrive in those environments, and we can help you provide that. The third trend, I talked about teachers and their skill sets, I talked about students and their skill sets. The third trend is about just technology devices and the rapid acceleration of access. You know, 10 years ago, having a really high-level computer lab with one internet connection, that kind of did the job. But today, that's a great place to start, but you need to have a plan to move beyond that, to a mobile lab possibly, or even to a one-to-one environment where every student has their own technical device. If it's a tablet or a computer or a Chromebook, you know, I'm not saying you have to do that immediately. In fact, I recommend you don't do that as step one, but prepare for that. One-to-one is not mandatory, but it's getting there. In the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to be pretty close to mandatory. So, you know, if you really pencil it out, you know, as more resources become available in the digital realm, that device for every student actually could pay for itself over time. It could pencil out to save you money as a school, as an administrator, because a lot of the resources, the hard copies of textbooks, some of the things that you're, maybe curriculums that you're paying for, a lot of the stuff will be free and available digitally. And now you're starting to create an environment that provides for a more digitally aware student, teacher environment, and now you're preparing for the future. So the model that we developed, we call it SwimGrid. It's a strategy and it's an implementation methodology that helps you get teachers, students, curriculum all aligned so that you could start moving into a more digital technological world. Now, we're not saying abandon your existing curriculum and abandon the way you do things, but modify, enhance, augment where relevant. And where this really gets important, and again, back to the first trend, is working with your staff. And what we've learned is this is usually the bottleneck in most schools. Your schools are getting technology. It's happening. And what's happening is teachers aren't necessarily prepared well enough to use it at a high level. So they do what they can. And as I mentioned before, that means downloading apps, playing games, visiting websites. We need to get more significant in that area. So this model that you see, it's a 5-part model. It happens over a 4-year timeline. You know, we're not saying it's a one-day in-service. That's not your answer. It's a prolonged technology integration plan that we would love to develop for your school. We use this model as a filter to put together a plan that helps you get to a more technological level, helping students be better prepared for the future, while maintaining, you know, keeping your teachers comfortable. We don't want to overwhelm your staff, but we do want to challenge them a bit to modify their methodology a little bit, how they instruct students to get to that level. So if you look at this model, professional development is #1 for a reason, because it is, what we have learned, is the most valuable piece of the puzzle. This is what's most lacking in the real world in classrooms around America, around the world, in fact. The second one is making sure your students have a complete understanding of technology. They're very computer friendly. They're very visual, and as far as media is concerned, very savvy. But do they understand spreadsheets and databases and creating presentations and searching correctly and creating a written document, all these other things? Let's make sure from a K-12 environment that your students are well-rounded with their technology, so as we get into more advanced concepts, the fundamentals are there, the basics are there. You want a strong foundation for your students. And the third point gets into curriculum. Are your lesson plans technology friendly? Are they demonstrating the use of technology? And does it subscribe to state standards while embracing technology? There's a way to do this through integration process, technology integration process. And you know, we help students, we help teachers, and we help curriculum specialists get to that level by providing resources and support and expertise. The fourth area is also important. This is your infrastructure. Some of you that are listening to this are in charge of IT and technology, and maybe you've been given the task of also doing the instructional stuff like professional development and curriculum, and maybe it's a little out of your realm, but you're really comfortable with infrastructure. Well, we want to partner with you. We want to help you have a well-rounded technology plan. What we have found is you know, it's not about preparing for one-to-one. It's about preparing for many-to-one. In the very short distant future, or the very distant, or the near future, it's not going to be about students coming to school with one device. They're going to have a computer, they're going to have a tablet, they're going to have a mobile phone, they're going to have a smartwatch, they're going to have smart tennis shoes, smart backpack, smart thermos. You know, there's going to be so many connected devices. You need to be aware that at some point in time your network will be very well used by multiple devices, not just by students but by teachers and visitors. So things like that you need to think about. And also number 5 has become very critical, and someone who kind of sees the big picture that could provide more of a project management role to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. There are a lot of moving parts. And this is the model that we have developed and that we apply when we partner with schools like yours. And we'd love to show you some examples. Let me get a little more detailed on some of these areas. One of the concepts that we really focus on is the concept of the 3 C's. What is the 3 C's? Well, in order for teachers to use technology effectively with their students, they need 3 C's. Confidence, they need competence, and they need content. It's a real simple observation, but it's so important that these 3 things are addressed effectively. Let's talk about C number 1, confidence. Well, this comes from training, and there's just no way around this piece of the puzzle. Now, we have a 3-pronged approach to training. Number 1 is assessment. Let's find out today what your teachers know about technology, what they don't know about technology, with regards to the 10 major technology areas: spreadsheets, database, graphics, the internet, desktop publishing, graphics, all these different areas. There's 10 of them. Let's focus on those and find out where are we at today. Now, what we've learned from experience, you probably have 10% of your staff that are off the charts, doing great things, using technology effectively, integrating lesson plans, and they love it. They're probably driving the technology vision for your school. Now, I caution you, a lot of schools I've worked with have developed technology committees, and they've brought on these high-tech teachers, these rock stars, to develop a technology plan. And that's not always a bad thing. That's a great thing. But keep in mind, they're working at a higher level than probably the other 80–90% of your staff. That might be fearful. That might be not comfortable with technology yet. So when you develop your plan, you need to address not only the top, but the middle and the bottom. What we have found from assessing teachers around the country, thousands of teachers at this point, it's usually 10–80–10. 10% of your staff are doing great stuff with technology. They're driving the technology plan. They're getting people excited. On the opposite end, you have 10% of your staff that maybe aren't going to come along. Just isn't their thing. You know, it's just beyond them, and that's okay. That's okay. And then you have that 80% in the middle. They use technology, they have smartphones, they have tablets, they have navigation in their car, they have digital television at home. They're technology friendly, but they don't really know how to use it effectively in their classroom. They're looking to you for a little guidance, for some support. They want to go beyond playing games. They want to go beyond just using apps and websites. They want to be a little more sophisticated. In order to do that, will require a little more sophisticated approach. So if you take a look at this competing agendas here, I call it, you know, on one side of the spectrum you have the gamesy, appsy approach. Apps, software, you know, there's some great tools, but it doesn't really do everything. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you have the project-based learning environment. Doing, making, creating, using technology more as a problem-solving tool. Now, what I have learned, and research also backs this up, is that students retain, enjoy, and learn better in a project-based environment but it requires a little more sophisticated approach. It requires a little more sophisticated teacher, a little more sophisticated lesson plan. And so we want to help you move towards that. And we're not saying every teacher is going to be a rock star and going to be just knocking it out of the park, but we want to start sharing ideas with your teachers so they can work towards that. At the end of the day, the answer is probably going to be in the middle somewhere for most of your teachers. They do want to do some project-based learning, but they're probably going to use some software solutions as well. We'll help you find out what's the best blend of those two ideas to give you a solid program that's not only benefiting students today, but really, again, so important, preparing them for the future, because wow, the future is off the charts. I can't even explain to you in this presentation how involved your students will need to be with technology to be effective out there, get good jobs. But we can start today to get them towards that. So assessing teachers, training teachers. We have a couple different levels of training. Obviously, you want to understand computers. You also want to understand tablets. And you also want to understand how they work together, how they work separate. And then you have something called the Chromebook, which is just, taking over education. We have solutions depending whichever model that you are in to make sure that you're comfortable and doing it effectively and working towards a more project-based environment. And this is an ongoing professional development process. I mentioned a 4-year snapshot. Well, first year is really getting the fundamentals based on the assessment results. The second year is getting a little more detailed. The third and fourth year, I don't even know what that's going to be at this point in time, but we do make sure to block off resources so that year 3 and 4 we can help you train your teachers on whatever the next greatest thing is. Sometimes it's just mentoring support. Sometimes it's just being a coach for them. I don't know yet, but having these PD hours blocked and scheduled and kind of prepared for it is really important. Now, just so you know, I'm not just pulling this out of my pocket. This is not, these concepts are not mine alone. Edudemic, a very well-respected online research company, they did some research a few years back, and they asked teachers, how valuable is technology? And if you look at these numbers, most teachers agreed, almost unanimously in some cases, that technology is absolutely essential, and it increases student engagement. So theoretically, teachers love and know that technology makes a difference. Now, the next set of questions by this survey asks teachers, so in practical use, are you using technology the way you think it should be used? And that's where the numbers just dropped off. 19% said they were using technology for content-specific tools and content-specific areas. Only 14% were using any kind of digital resources. 92%, again almost unanimous, said they should be using it more. And 77%, more than 3/4, said it was very difficult to find the correct resources. So theory and practice are two different worlds. Now, there was another set of questions. So it went on, are you using technology effectively? The ones that said they are, those 23% that were using technology, good, we're spending too much time. Now, some of you are shaking your head going, yes, that's exactly the problem I have found myself in. Some of you have done your work, you've done your job, you have technology, you have a device in the hands of every student, you have a technological masterpiece at your school, but now comes the work. You have learned that just having the technology is not going to solve the problem. Now we need to figure out how to use it and apply it to the classroom, and that's a whole nother proposition. That's a whole nother set of skills and time and resources, and this is the problem that is happening all over the country. As schools are getting technology, they're getting the bond measures, they're getting the parents to fundraise, they're increasing tuition, they're doing technology fees, and they're getting the stuff. And they're finding that it's not quite doing what it's supposed to do. Well, this is where the real work begins. Now that we have the technology, let's develop a plan to use it effectively. And you cannot rely on your teachers to figure it out on their own. Yes, a couple of them will, but most of them will not. They don't have the 3 C's to do that. So let's develop a plan that will apply those 3 C's. Let's get to the second C, competence. Why are we doing this? What are the skills that we really need to be applying, and what do teachers need to understand? They have the confidence, but what are the tools for the job? Now, something that we do every couple of years is we evaluate trends in occupations, in jobs, in the real world job market. You know, it's interesting, but if we're looking at, I think 2033 is when NASA says we're going to have people on Mars. We're talking, okay, this is crazy. I am right now talking to you about a real life project where we are going to put people on Mars. Okay, this is the first time I've even mentioned this concept, but it's happening. It's in process. Our seven-year-old kids today are going to be on Mars in 2033. This is ridiculous. This is crazy. This is off the charts. But this is the world we're living in. This innovation phase is taking us to other planets. So I use Mars as one example, but there's going to be thousands of other industries that will be impacted by this innovation. So I ask yourself, you know, what are the skills that are going to be required for these jobs? And so all we can really do is look at data points. Every few years, we look at the fastest growing jobs in America, over 45K, and look at this list here. It's dominated by healthcare. It was different than the list 5 years ago and much different than the list 10 years ago. And it's a completely different list from the list 15 years ago. But if you look at these jobs and identify the skill sets required to do this, you will notice there's a few things that just jump out. Things like critical thinking, things like collaboration, things like creativity and innovation. These skills were kind of important 15 years ago. They're a little more important 10 years ago. 5 years ago, critical. Today, they are the skill sets that are required for these fast-growing jobs. So imagine 10, 15, 20 years out. Do you think these data points are going to drop, or are they going to continue to go up? And you know, none of us can predict the future, but we can connect the dots, and we can use our brains and understand that these type of skill sets are not going to become less important. They're going to become more important, and there's going to be even some more technical skill sets on top of that that we haven't yet identified. You know, I started out the presentation with this artificial intelligence, where you can get into a world. You know, that's just one of many different disciplines that are becoming more and more important that at some point in time we have to address in the classroom. It's not that far out. It's not that difficult. We just need to get the fundamentals, the basics covered. Then we can start tapping into some of these more complex areas. Let's get into the third C, content. This is one of my favorite things. If we have confident teachers and we have students that are more up to speed with the skill sets and they understand the foundations, we can now create a more complex lesson plan. And this is where we partner with your teachers or your curriculum specialist. We partner with someone from your school that is in charge of curriculum. And we help you determine, right now in the early stages, it's usually 4 projects per year per grade. So if you're a K-8 school, 36 projects we want to develop, where we look at your lessons, we look at the state standards, we look at your school's ESLERs, we look at any other things you're doing. Are you an IB school? Are you getting into STEM or STEAM or STREAM? You know, we take all these things into consideration, and then we help you with our expertise develop integrated projects that are not different. We're not giving your teacher something different. We're just adding technology projects into what they already do. Now, in this model, I mentioned you have those front-end 10% teachers that are already doing this. They love the fact that someone can now do this for them because they're spending way too much time. Our people do this all day, every day. They are integration specialists. They are experts. They have seen all the tools. They've seen all the different variations and lesson plans, and they have created so many integrated projects. It's like second nature to them. So for them to sit down with your teacher and spend 30 minutes talking about a lesson plan, they can now go to their office, spend 3 to 10 hours, and redevelop that lesson plan on behalf of the teacher for you. So the goal is to create this content creation machine. So the high-level teachers love the fact they have someone to do this for them. The lower-level teachers, and I hate to use that term, but the ones that aren't quite as sophisticated, they're never going to be able to do this to begin with, at least not in the short term. Now they have someone to help them create these projects, and it solves a huge problem. And this, if you haven't become a one-to-one or a digital environment, this is the problem that a lot of schools find is we have the technology, but how do we use it at a high level? How do we really achieve that high level of instruction with technology, preparing kids for the future, when most of our teachers aren't quite there? Well, you partner with someone like us, and we provide these skill sets for you. And over this 4-year timeline, we kind of step back. As your staff builds up their skill set, we become less direct instructors, and we become more of consultants and advisors and coaches. And we help you maintain this process. At the end of 4 years, we relook at the situation and how can we go even further, and we further consult you. So our role is to create this foundation where everyone is at a higher level, and lesson plans can now be developed at a higher level, and you could start buying higher level technology and creating more technical environments where teachers, students, curriculum, infrastructure are all moving to a higher plane. And all this stuff you hear about, you read about, that this school in Kansas did this amazing stuff with virtual reality, and they're partnering with NASA, and they're launching rockets, and they're doing experimentation, and kids are doing crazy things. That could be you. Let's get you to that level with our assistance, with our help. So 3 C's: confidence, training. Competence, making sure students have basic skills. We have curriculums that are designed either for a computer lab. Most schools in America still have a computer lab, and we have a curriculum to address that. And we do like the computer teacher or or IT specialist or tech specialist, teacher on assignment, TOSAs. We like that concept of having the specialist at your school or a specialist supporting a group of schools. We still like that concept, especially in the early stages. It's kind of critical. So we have curriculum to put in their hands so we can get the students instructed immediately while we're training your teachers. And then content. Let's look at your lesson plans. Now, this is a beautiful plan, because we're not trying to sell you a bunch of lesson plans that were created by someone else somewhere else on a different set of standards. We actually come to your school and we customize it based on your lesson plans. Teachers love this. They buy in so much better because they already know their lesson plans. So if we sprinkle technology into that, they're already halfway there. Instead of giving them something fresh and they need to figure out how to make it work into their pacing schedule, it's already done. They already know that schedule. We're just sprinkling technology and creating practical lesson plans. Now, by the way, year 1, they're simple plans, but by year 4, off the charts. And if you're not a one-to-one school, that's okay. I like getting everyone prepared. Let's prepare your teachers. Let's prepare your students. Let's update your curriculum and your infrastructure so when the one-to-one model arrives, you're off to the races. And we can help you with purchasing. We have partnerships with a lot of vendors to get the best prices on equipment and servers. We have an IT staff to help you support that initiative. We have that. That's part of our responsibility as your partner. But you're not, once the one-to-one arrives, you're off to the races. And maybe you don't do the one-to-one immediately. Maybe it's a mobile cart. Maybe it's 2 mobile carts of high-level technology. If it's laptops, Macs, PCs, is it Chromebooks? We love Chromebooks. The price is right. There's so much you can do with them. Whatever you decide, iPads, we support that as well. Let's make sure that it's not just about stuff, but you also prepare your staff and everyone's on the same page. Real quick, well, yeah, let's do this. I'm going to take a quick poll, if you do not mind. I'm curious what you are currently using. The poll should be popping up right now on your screen. Click your answer quickly, and I want to know, what are you using today? Because this change, every time I do this presentation, it changes. But it's fascinating to me because, you know, the device isn't the end-all say-all. In our opinion, you know, students should have access to computers and tablets. They're everything. Wow, interesting. Okay, so 60% of you are PC, 60% iPad. Some of you have both, because that's why we have 160%, which is generally not possible. But I did give the option of choosing both. So a lot of you have blended environments. That's where I was going with this. One of my best models, this school in Texas, they have computer lab with PCs. The students have iPads, and then they have a cart of Chromebooks that goes around. So the students actually access 3 different environments. I love that. I love the fact that you know, your students have access to multiple environments. that is going to prepare them even better. So again, we have an IT team. We can help you identify this. Many of you, this is something you do. This is your specialization, so we can help you with the instructional side. Some of you that are instructional and this is not your specialty, we can make some suggestions and help you get that established. So real quick, yeah, we got the infrastructure. So real quick, the fifth part of the model, you know, a few years back, we didn't realize the importance of a project manager. Today, we have learned that it's one of those pieces of the puzzle. It's a very cohesive part of the model. Someone who is responsible for dates, deliverables, meetings, the overall plan. Again, there's a lot of moving parts. And I should put, I have a couple of integrations or project managers. I should put some pictures on this little guy spinning plates here because such an important role. Now, something that we have found invaluable in this project management role, sometimes as administrators, you don't get the complete picture. You know, you have your meetings and you hear stuff from your staff and from your families and from students, but there's a whole conversation going on behind the scenes of what they really feel about the technology. And I can't tell you how many times, you know, our project managers, they're former teachers. They're still teachers when I'm talking about. They're former classroom teachers. They're educators that understand the stress and the role of a classroom teacher going through this process. They see it all day, every day with schools all over the country. So they're very user-friendly. They're very empathetic. And so they sometimes hear, you know, things that you're not going to hear. And sometimes this is critical information. So the project manager doesn't just serve as someone to check off boxes and schedule things, but they're there as a liaison between you and your staff, your families. We want to participate in back-to-school nights if possible. We want to come out and do presentation to parents to make sure they're aware of what you're trying to do as a school to go to the next level, and be able to really to communicate the program that you're putting in place. Now, our model looks different, and every school we work with, it's different. But we use that filter, that 5-part model, that filter, to make sure that we don't leave anything out. And at the end of the day, the goal is to have a high-quality program that makes your school better, that makes your teachers more effective, that prepares your students for the future. But we don't want to do this in a bubble. We want to make sure that this model is clearly explained to your families, but more importantly, to your community. One of the byproducts, and we don't guarantee this. This is not a guarantee. But part of our role is to help you develop a plan that you can communicate to the community to make your school better, to make it grow, for parents to want to come to your school. Now, I used to say this in passing, but there are some changes taking place where school choice within the next year or two will become a real thing. And when that happens, parents will get to choose where their resources can go, where that funding can go. How are you going to position yourself to be a leader in the community? Technology is a very user-friendly, parent-friendly program that will get them excited about your school. So let's start now. I'm not saying you have to work with us, but let us develop a plan for you that you can now start communicating to your board, to your families, to your community. If you're budgeting, this is kind of the process that we put together. Right now, we are talking to schools. We're doing a lot of consensus building, where we're actually giving samples out to schools. We're taking them on site visits. If you're in a geographic location, we have schools all over the country, so we could try to take you on a visit. If we can't take you physically, at least we can maybe do a video virtual field trip or site visit, or we could give you some references of schools that we work with. We work with all types of schools, charter, public, private, Catholic, Lutheran. We have the gamut. We also want to make sure that we started analyzing your school, and the goal is to develop a model that's effective for you and helps you get to the next level. So that would be a proposal, and the proposal will have a timeline, that 4-year timeline, and it will have numbers, so you can start figuring out, is this financially possible, and if it isn't, how can we make it financially possible? And that's when we get to the next step, where we start talking to the the decision makers. Sometimes you have a school board, or you have a technology committee, or you have a PTA or a parent group that might help get this going. Whatever it is, this is where we could actually partner with you and help get the message clearly explained to whoever needs to hear it. We do a lot of parent presentations. Sometimes we just make a web presentation like this, a workshop like this, and you just present it to your team on video. Oftentimes we like to be there in person. We want to start developing that personal relationship. And so you know, we don't work with tens of thousands or thousands of schools. We have a couple hundred clients. So we're very hands-on. We're very relationship friendly. We want to be part of the school culture. We want your families to know about us. We want your board to know about us. We want to really be hands-on. So we're a little different than a typical vendor, software or hardware. We're more of a partner, and we want to help your school grow with this model. From there, we want to work towards a contract, because once we have a contract in place, that's when our wheels in motion start. Because at the end of the day, we need to put a plan together and have it start putting the pieces in place, and then we need to start preparing your people. And that's you know, we have a training in August. If you have a computer teacher, we have an August training that's critical for them to come to. If we're providing equipment or servers or infrastructure improvements, that's when we start installing stuff, July and August, because most of you, by the end of August, September, school's on. We want to be in place. Now, the other option is we could start in January. We have a lot of schools that just want to, you know, extra 6 months or whatever to get things moving. Having that plan in place, at least now you know when makes sense. And if it's going to be, you know, $5, $10, $15, $30 per student per month, you need to know that number so you can build it into your forecast. Now, this February-May timeframe, a lot of you are tuition-based schools. Many of our clients do a tech fee, and again, if it's $10 a month or $40 a month, it really depends on so many variables. You want to know that, because you want to build that in before you start having your contracts signed. So this is the timeline. It's not in stone. It's kind of a rough estimate, but it's nice to know what it takes to partner with us. And that's my next question for you. If you want to see how this model can work with your school, it's very simple. There are a few questions I need answered, and there's going to be a survey when this workshop is done that you need to fill out. I want to know how many, what are your grade levels? Are you K6, K8, K12, 9, 12? Let me know. I need to know how many teachers you have. 8, 12, 30, 80? Give me that number. I want to know how many students you have. With those three things, I could start working on a plan that would make sense for you. There's a little more, obviously, conversation that needs to go into it, but at least I could get the ball rolling. Two things. First, I would like you to subscribe to our blog. Be part of our community of innovative educators. You need to go to this website, beyondteched.com, and up in the right-hand corner, you will see a little button called the K12 Daily Dose blog, which is where we send out all of the latest research that we come up with. And it's not really a sales and marketing website. It's more about information. But obviously, you could click through and get in touch with us. But that's a great way to get started. If you have more urgency than that, and one or two of you are on the edge of your seat right now, and that's okay. Maybe it's 5 or 10 of you. Maybe it's every one of you. That's okay. Call me. I am in the office most of the day today, and we can start talking about this process. Even if you're listening to this on video, because this is being recorded, this is the number that you could reach us at, and we could start talking about this process, because the sooner you start talking about it and working towards a proposal, there's no cost involved in getting to that point. At least you have a number and a plan that you don't even have to work with us. At least you have a plan, and you can start developing it yourself and figuring out where your existing tech plan needs a little work. But I will get that to you without a problem. Email or call us, and you could also email me, Ernie, at beyondteched.com. So I thank you for your time. I think we did good on time. And if there's questions, reach out to us. And you're fantastic for taking time today. Let's prepare those kids. the future is different than it is now. We need to start getting them ready for it. Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day.